goodness me, what a shot!
Sagosen setter det hen! Han setter den! De er i semifinale igjen!
Hello everyone and welcome to the Uninformed Handball Hour. It's Chris O'Reilly here with you on a Friday to look back at the first leg action in the Men's Champions League. And we're also going to have a little look at the Women's Champions League as well. It's all Champions League here this week as we're heading into the business end of the season. The knockout rounds well underway now in both competitions. And we had the first leg of the playoffs in the Men's Champions League take place on Wednesday night and last night on Thursday with some fascinating games across the board. And joining us to chat about those games will be Danijela Vekic. She'll be on in just a couple of minutes. And a quick overview for you fans who also support us on Patreon, or if you're thinking about supporting us on Patreon. We'll have a bit of a special week next week with 2 bonus podcasts on our morning club as we'll look back on Wednesday, first of all, as we look back at the European League playoff round, concluding the second leg of those matches taking place on Tuesday night. And then we'll be back this time next week on Friday morning to look back on how the playoff round in the Men's Champions League concluded. And as you're going to hear, at least 3 of those ties very beautifully poised heading into the second leg. So let's welcome Danijela Vekic onto the show. Joining us to chat a little Champions League, both on the men's and women's side, we have Danijela Vekic, friend of the show. Happy that you join us here, Danijela, and taking some time out of your non-existent Easter weekend, as you were just telling me before we started.
Yeah, thank you, Chris, for having me again in this podcast. Well, as you said, we are not used to having Easter weekend off when you're in handball, so it's nothing new for us.
Exactly. And we're just on the back of some really interesting games. We've had the first leg of the playoff in the Men's Champions League. We'll talk a bit about that first and then wrap up on the Women's Champions League, where we can already start looking forward to the quarterfinals. But yeah, looking back at the games that happened on Wednesday and Thursday, 3 games in particular that I think were quite interesting. And maybe we can start with Match of the Week, which I had the fortune of covering yesterday. Sporting showing their brilliant inconsistency that has happened throughout the whole season in the matter of one match, leading by 10 goals early in the second half against Płock before winning in the end just 33-29. And I wondered towards the end of that game if a team has ever been happier to lose a match by 4 goals from a Płock perspective.
I have to be honest, when Sporting hit the 10-goal lead, I was talking with my husband and he was like, oh, this is not going to end well for Wisla. And I was like, wait for it. Like, we need to wait for it because it's not going to end like this. We know Sporting can kind of burn out in the last part of the game. And I think, yeah, as you said, Wisla is very happy with this just 4-goal behind for the rematch. It was a great game by Sporting in the first half. I was really surprised with it, and I was more surprised with Wisla's response to Sporting's play. So, but I think I'm not gonna sound maybe very good for some people, but even though Costa brothers are amazing, they scored 19 goals yesterday, but in those last moments of the game, you can see the team cannot rely on what they're going to do, whether it's scoring or assisting or anything else. So I think we're going to have a great rematch in Poland.
I think that's a very fair point. You mentioned that we can focus in a little bit on the end points of this game before talking a bit broader, because it was really much a case of once Płock were coming back into the game, the rest of the Sporting team quite literally just looked at the 2 of them and said, okay, get us out of this. Which I was so impressed with this team, particularly in the first 45 minutes, because it was a full team performance. Everyone was on the same page. They were moving beautifully. They were finding spaces like with their movement off the ball. The defense was brilliant. Everything was going so well for Sporting. But then when Płock were starting to come back, they literally just waited for, first it was Martin scoring 3 goals in a row late on. and then Kiko scoring 2 more towards the end to just get them something. And that really did show that there's maybe a little bit of a lack of trust in themselves, the rest of the team, a trust in themselves when it comes to that crunch time.
Yeah, I agree with you. Definitely. It really showed. And that's why I said, like, you cannot rely only on the brothers in those clutch moments. You have to have more faith in yourself. But we, as you said, we had the same problems with Sporting in some other games this season. So I think they've put themselves in a very tough position for the rematch, because Wisla playing at home, it's going to be a very different game. And I don't think Wisla can play as bad as they did. Maybe they've lost in the first 30 minutes of the first game. So that's the problem that Sporting had. And Mohamed Ali had some great saves at the start, but later on there were some missing, and Bergerud started to save. So so overall it was an amazing game. It was really an amazing game.
Now, you always have your eye on the goalkeepers, as you said, with your husband being a professional goalkeeper himself. What did the two of you make of that decision to bring Mohamed Ali off on about the 45-minute mark for Christensen, who then couldn't buy a save, and then Ali coming back in right at the end and saving the penalty? Always a risky decision to make, even riskier than to bring the goalkeeper back in again, but it felt like the way that Ali was playing, even in the second half when he wasn't making saves, he was still looking very confident and kind of playing in a way that, like, he's not that far away from making another 3 or 4 saves. I don't know what you thought there.
It's always hard to talk about it and think about it, because, of course, you have a coach, and some teams have goalkeepers coach who make decision, who can maybe see something that we don't, or know something that we don't. I think that in those moments, it's just the coaches try to change something. They cannot change their defensive players. They cannot change the attack, because we all know Sporting they're gonna rely on Costa brothers, so they're not gonna change that. So maybe they just wanted to maybe try something different, because now Wisla Plock already know Mohamed Ali, how he saves, how he feels on the court. Maybe they wanted to try something different with Christensen, but it's also hard for the goalkeepers when they just come in from the bench in crucial moments, and everyone expects from you to do something. It's not that easy. It's always tricky. Make it or break it. Christensen could have had like Laura Glazer in the playoffs of FTC. So you never know, but it's risky. It's a risky call for me always.
And on the other side, Xavi Sabate staying with Bergerud, and that did pay off, because as you said, Bergerud very strong in the first half, kind of fell off then a little bit in the center, but it was magnificent towards the end. A really strong performance, and it was him and the wing players who ended up saving the day, with Mikhail Daszek on the right hand side and Krajewski on the left. And Daszek saying after the game that this was the worst half we've played all season. They maybe pick the right half for that to happen when you consider how they've come back. And you have to wonder if it will be a very different Potsk team in the second leg, because you can't imagine that the likes of Richardson and Kosorotov will be as inconsequential in the second leg. They have to be better.
Yes, that's what I say. Like, we're not going to see Wisla as bad as in the first half yesterday. So I think that's why for Sporting it's so tough, because from 10 goals to 4 goals, it's an open game in the rematch. So, and as you said, Melvin Richardson, he scored he had 50% of shooting accuracy. So, and missing that last penalty. So I think there's no way we're going to see Wisla as bad. And I think Wisla, I will not say have bigger chances, but it's like a tie. I think they're starting from 0 in the rematch.
Yeah, something like that. 3 or 4 goals win in the first leg going away is it's the perfect point you want from a neutral point of view heading into the second leg. In a very similar situation in the other game last night, with Szeged beating Kielce by 3 goals. And speaking of goalkeeper performances, 41-year-old Roland Mikler with 16 saves, 43%, reeling back the years. He always seems to just come up with something special every now and then for Szeged, who have had a really, like, similar to Sporting, just like a very forgettable season so far. With Sporting, they've had their ups and downs. With Szeged, it's just, seems to have stayed down for the most part, but giving themselves a chance with that first leg win.
Definitely. And as I was watching the game, it was really pretty much a tie throughout the game up until those last 5 minutes. Kielce was really pouncing and not letting it go, even though, like we just said, Roland Mikler was amazing, and especially in the first half, he made some crucial saves. He was really helping his team, but in the attack they were not responding very well because Kielce was also playing a bit of a different defense. They were playing really deep defense. We also saw Kunku later on as a front defender, so the attack wasn't following the defensive structure of Szeged, but Roland Mikler was crucial, and he's just incredible to me. Like I was really I wasn't surprised. I was really happy to see him again performing on the level he can. But I also think for that game, it's going to be a much different game in Poland. We all know how Kielce plays at home, even though they also have some of their maybe problems, and their defense sometimes was not on the desired level this season, even in the home league. I also have to say Lazar Kukic was amazing for Szeged yesterday. He really performed amazing and was using space when he was needed to.
Yeah, it was an interesting one with maybe the change in approach for Szeged that was enforced by Ian Gottfriedson not being there. We've been a little bit critical of him in recent times on the podcast, and I think also in the general handball world about his seeming decline, or maybe his style of handball not being up to scratch the way things are at the moment. But the fact that he wasn't there has kind of given Szeged maybe a bit of freedom in that regard for the likes of Kukic to shine a little bit more. There was no Alex Dushabayev for Kielce yesterday. He had a hamstring strain, which they were allowing him to, maybe saving him for the second leg. There was some chat in our Discord for our subscribers for the podcast, wondering if he's actually going to be able to survive in the Bundesliga for a full season, the way things are going for him. But that's maybe a topic for another day. But if they do get him back for that second leg, then you would imagine that the Kielce are the favourites, right?
Yeah, of course. If they're going to have Alex, it's going to change their game, because we all know what Alex means to Kielce attack. So to me, Kielce is a favorite because Pick Szeged is not playing on the level this season that maybe they were supposed to, like what people were expecting from them. But it's so hard to predict when you have just few goals lead. So Szeged is coming to Hala Legiono with just 3 goals up. Anything can happen to me,
sure.
Of course. And it just depends how Szeged's going to approach this new task, because we saw they had some problems with Kielce defense and in some parts of the game, and they couldn't have like true response to it.
We can't assume either that the home teams here, the 2 Polish teams at home next week, are going to dominate in a certain way, because we have seen many times in these knockout games that it doesn't necessarily go that way, that the second leg could all of a sudden be a little bit more nervy, teams not willing to take as many risks because of the tight nature of things, and then all of a sudden opening up a 3 or 4 goal lead seems a lot harder than it did in the first leg for a team. So that one, very much all to play for. One team that will be, the only team that will be taking an advantage home with them for the second leg is Nantes, who pulled a rabbit out of the hat. 3 goals in 45 seconds right at the end against GOG, which was a bizarre set of scenes. Incredible stuff, and like the shock in the hall in Svendborg as well. Really remarkable stuff, that not winning that one 34-33.
Yeah, I was surprised, I have to be honest. I was watching the game in the first half, and I really thought they will have it. because Nantes, they didn't. I mean, they're a good team, but they really also played bad first half. I remember at one point, I don't know which minute it was. I always look the goalkeeper saves. So both Bioska and Pesic were on 0 saves, and it was 0 out of 10 and 0 out of 9. And I was like, okay, this is not their day. But also, I thought even if GOG wins, they're not gonna stand up in a rematch because you cannot have as bad Nantes as they were at that point of game. So, but it seems to be Nantes a thing to come back in the last few minutes of the game.
They did it against Vesprem recently,
Yes.
and with this one, somehow even more remarkable. I mean, it does show a lot of mental strength in this non-team, and you know, they're far from home and dry, because you can also imagine Nantes are a team to lose a game at home, as strong as they can be at home, but nothing guaranteed against GOG, who've already pulled off a big win against a French team in Paris Saint-Germain this season. So not over yet, and when you consider GOG were 6 goals up as well at one point in this game, it's it would be one still to watch out for, I'd say. It's not completely over.
It is.
You can imagine some nerves in the Ash Arena.
Of course. But as I said, like they had, as you said, I even think it was 5+5 in the 45th minute. And then all of a sudden you miss a penalty. You have a technical fault. Someone steals you a ball. You miss a goal, and all of a sudden it's a well-go game. It's nerves coming in. So it is different, but I would like to see someone who maybe people weren't looking at as favorites going through. So of course, I have to cheer for a French team, but but it would be nice to see someone like Goga in the quarterfinals. So yeah, but I think it's going to be also a very interesting rematch. We should not, cross off them from to do anything. So
this one could come back and bite me by saying it, but I think one game we can maybe cross off. Maybe
I think we can. I think we can.
Yeah, Vesprem against PSG. Vesprem winning 32-24. And the threat, let's say, from Vesprem CEO Dr. Csaba Bartha, that consequences will be had if the team are not going to reach their goals, seem to have worked out, at least for now. They've won that one by 8 goals, 16 goals from the wingers on the Vesprem side. Impressive stuff there, but from PSG, just a complete collapse from the 2 big shooters, Prondy, 4 from 10. And Omar 2 from 7, which you can't get away with both of them not having a day like that.
Again, that game showed all the problems PSG had throughout the whole season. This is not the Paris Saint-Germain that we are used to watch, and the team that was so strong in recent years. And Vesprem, as you said, they had this talk from their CEO. They have to perform, and they're the team that wants to show and maybe break the curse. Maybe not this season, but with this coach, with this team, everything they're going around the team, I think they're just in it. And I think they played a great game.
Yeah.
And that's it.
That's it, yeah. PSG did secure a big win right at the end of the group phase against, let's say, a Magdeburg team that maybe weren't showing up or already had their homework done. So hard to really imagine they'll be able to do that against Vesprem. I'm open to be corrected. I'm open to be shocked next week, but I think that's
Me
one.
too.
It's nice that we have 3 games at least that are really open. And we talked about this in the pod last week with the playoff round. I think we as fans and journalists have kind of been burnt in recent years. We've been hyping it up, and then we realize, oh, actually, these 4 teams are actually way better. But here we've seen a lot of tight contests. Maybe the disparity between the two groups showing a little bit as well, as lower seeds were getting good results against higher seeds. But overall, I think we're in a good position for next week, and that takes us over to the Women's Champions League. I'd say let's start with Bistrica, who maybe, at least in some people's minds, might have had the shock of the round, getting a really good win against ECAST, an ECAST side who are hanging on to life, it seems. I think the 10 court players and 9 court players in that round, but still beaten quite heavily, 72-62. And Danila So Delgado, I think we talked about her at some point during the World Championship, where she was just on fire. 25 goals in the 2 legs.
2 games.
It's remarkable.
I just recently talked to her for the My Game piece for the HF. She is amazing. She's going to be this new leader of new Spanish national team with this younger generation. She's amazing. I don't know how to describe her really, but she is amazing. And the thing is, she has so many room to improve still. And that's even what she says. Like, I know what I can do, but I know also what I can work on. 25 goals in 2 games, it says enough. And when you're playing against her, and after the first game, I think that she scored 11 in the first game. You know that she's the main weapon for Bistrica, and you cannot stop her in the second game. It says enough. 14 goals, it's just crazy. It's crazy game for a back player. So, of course, ECAS had this problem with rotation. They only had 10 players. I think they didn't have a chance in Romania. That's all.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah. And as I said, you talked to Danila recently for the My Game on Eurohandball.com. Still such a young player. Seems to be very well read as well. Like, a lot of focus on education, on languages. Not an easy thing, of course, for a young Spanish player to move abroad as well. Like, we've seen, maybe to the detriment of Spanish handball in recent years, players focusing too much on playing in Spain, where the level is not quite there. But she really seems to have, for her young age, her head really screwed on.
Yeah, I think that was her, let's say, goal, because she understands she cannot develop maybe as much in Spain because of their league. She wanted to play European handball, top level handball, and for her, Bistrica was a great choice in the end. And as you said, she always emphasized this family she's coming from. They're from Guinea-Bissau. So she moved to Zaragoza. She was raised there, but she was also raised in this multicultural surrounding. And she's always talking about learning new languages, learning new cultures. And she said, coming to Romania was super hard for me, but also it made me stronger. And she always says, I want to learn language, I want to learn a culture, and I always want to try my best in all aspects, not only just on the court. And I think it's showing what kind of person she is, and it kind of transcends to the court as well.
What kind of chance do you give them against Bretagne now in the quarterfinals?
I think in that game, everything is possible. I don't want to say Bistrica doesn't have a chance, because, of course, Brest has this experience, we can say. They are a great team, amazing team. But we also know some changes are coming at the end of the season with the team. So they're also going to have this push to do something. But I think everything is possible, but especially with Bistrica now, having this joy of going to the quarterfinals for the first time ever in their second season in the Champions League. They also won against CSM in the home league. So I think they really want to show they are here and they deserve to be here. So I don't think that we should really, say Brest complete favorites.
Yeah. Oh, well, particularly when, as we were talking about, you have a player who can bang in double-digit goals almost with ease. You were saying there about Brest and the changes that are coming. Do you feel like there's almost like a kind of a last chance for this group of players to make that impact and to get this team back to the Champions League Final Four?
Well, for this
cohort,
this group,
yes.
yes. Of course, new coach, new changes for the next season. It's going to be different, but and you always, when you change some things, you have to have time to adjust everything. So for this group, with the Rafael Tarvele as a coach,
almost a derby feel as well, with the amount of Spanish players and the in the Bistrica team and the coaching staff. So that should be a fun one. FTC, you mentioned there earlier in our chat with the goalkeeper impact. They came through a test, you'd say, against Dortmund. Some nervy moments for them in that second leg where it looked like maybe they were going to collapse.
Well, not only the second game, also the first game. Even though they won by 6 in the first game, it was a tie game for the most part, and I was surprised. I didn't know if I was more surprised with their response or with Borussia's play, because I think if Laura Gloser didn't do that, what she did in the first game in those last 10 minutes, it would be it wouldn't be as wide gap.
Yeah.
It would be probably closer match. And then you have a rematch that ended up in a draw. Great Borussia Dortmund, who really, I don't think anyone was expecting from them to, challenge Ferencváros. So, and of course, Sikora, between the boss, the former FTC player who was playing her last Champions League game. So it was very, really fun to watch that they're challenging Ferencváros.
But Ferencváros sneaking through in the end. They've had a weird season. Very strong, season. Very strong early on. Do you think that, talking a bit about how the season has gone for them and where they are now, do you think it has an impact now heading into the quarterfinals against Metz, or will these teams be able to just put it all behind them and focus on, the 120 minutes ahead?
Well, to be honest, Ferencváros is an experienced team that has to be able to put everything behind and just to go from zero in the quarterfinals against Metz. Of course, they entered this new era with Jesper Jensen as a head coach. Some of the players came. They were, they had a good start, but then they started struggle throughout in the group phase. I still think that we didn't see the real Ferencváros in terms of Jesper Jensen's vision that he has for this team. But I don't know if they're going to be able to show it already this season, to be honest.
Yeah, the turnover between getting through this round and now heading into real blockbuster, quarterfinal against Metz, who are a fantastic team. Two coaches that also know each other very well. So, with the national team break happening right now as well, it is very little time, you can imagine, for anything new to be implemented that the FTC aren't showing at the moment. So would you say that Metz are the favourites there, who, although it's always fairly tough in the French league, they have had time to build up for this and probably knowing for quite a while who their opponents were going to be?
Yeah, I always hate to say someone is a favorite, but for me, yes, Metz is an amazing team, very well structured. Emmanuel knows what he's doing, what he wants from his players, and I think, they also, I don't want to sound very down on French league, but they only have few strong games also, so more time to kind of prepare for the Champions League. So I think they're going to be favorites, and especially they will have this reverse fixture at home. So I think we're going to see them at the Final Four again.
Odense getting the job done, the first leg against Debrecen. They continue their Hungarian adventure in order to potentially go back to Budapest against Győr in the quarterfinal. I hesitate to doubt this team after what they did last season,
Yes.
But
same.
they're also struggling with numbers at the moment, which seems to be the Danish way in the last few years. But Győr also not completely bulletproof, as we saw towards the end of the group phase.
Győr is obviously, to me, and I think to a lot of handball fans, because I also consider myself a fan for the first, but they are the favorites. They're an amazing team. They have this wide rotation of amazing players. Yes, they showed some maybe flaws, but I still think they want to go to the Final Four again, trying to win again. So, yeah, at least we're not going to have the same 4 teams at the Final Four as last season, because Odense and J are playing against each other in quarterfinals. Odense, it's a team that can do anything.
Yeah.
So I really don't know what to say. They've played very good this first game against Debrecen, even though Debrecen fought hard, but they couldn't. I have to say, Debrecen was great, but Jarate Holti had 21 saves. You cannot fight against a team whose goalkeeper has 21 saves. It's impossible, I think. But they also played very good return match. It was a draw, 34-34. Anything can happen. I'm sorry, I don't know what to say about Odense, because everything can happen.
It is fair, and with the players that Odense have, you mentioned the goalkeeping ability, that it can come from potentially anyone. Big backcourt shooting ability, mixed with some real like speed and agility in the backcourt as well. Like there are many ways they can hurt Jura, and now that I have experienced and seen what Esbjerg did to Jura in Denmark just a couple of months ago, I can't unsee that. And that was quite shocking. And there is a world where that does happen in the first leg with Odense at home. They pull off a massive first leg win and just give themselves a chance to do it against Jura in the second leg. But yeah, it will take something special like that for that to happen. I think otherwise Jura, again, have had plenty of time to build up for this, similar to Metz. That's what they get for being in the top 2 in the group. That's that's the benefit you earn. And it is definitely a benefit when you have a national team week in between the 2 rounds here for teams that haven't had that break. So,
but also for Odense, it's going to be very. We have to see if their injured players are going to come back, because we know that Mia Hoylund got injured and Luis Burgada and Ili Bakerodo back in February. So I don't know the status of their injuries and in what part of the rehabilitation they are. So that's also going to be crucial for Odense, because if you have a full squad, you can count on everyone. Everything is possible. So yeah.
Speaking of everything is possible, that has to be the case here in the final quarterfinal. Esbjerg against CSM Bucuresti. Esbjerg through after 11 goals from Henny Reistad in the first leg against Podravka. Just before, actually, we talked about those 2 teams to get your perspective on Podravka as well, who into the knockout phase now for the second year in a row, right, that they're in. Where do you see them as in terms of their ambition now, as Croatia's almost like national team club, and competing in Europe, knowing that they're probably not going to be really competing for Final Four spots at the moment? Where do you think they can go? And is there maybe some more ambition over there?
Well, Podravka, they always have some ambition. Of course, their main goal is always to go through the group phase, to go to the playoffs. I think that they were playing very good at the start of the season. They were really, maybe people were surprised by them. They have the biggest issue was injuries for this season. They lost Katarina Panja, who was their top scorer in November. They also had a lot of different injuries. Ana Devilic couldn't play as a line player. They had, I think at one point they had 6 injuries. So it's incredible for a team like them that they don't have this wide rotation maybe as other teams, and the quality. This result is the best they could get, especially against Esbjerg. Like, I think that Esbjerg had the easiest opponent in the playoffs. I know for the next season they are bringing some reinforcements. I think they're going to be a bit stronger next season, but I don't know if that's going to be enough to make another step maybe to the quarterfinals. I don't know, but they are, as you said, sometimes they're often described as a national team club of the national team of Croatia, but then we have to say Katarina Panja and Matea Pletikosic, 2 main engines for Podravka, are not playing for Croatia. Yeah, but they are Croatian. So Katarina is playing for Austria, Matea exactly. For Montenegro. So that's one of the problems for Podravka, because the back line is not Croatian.
Yes.
But they had this idea of Poljaka being a ground for the national team.
The team that vanquished them, Esbjerg against CSM. I mean, there's so many fun little subplots here. CSM who've been completely cursed in recent years, like not even recent years, like six quarterfinals in a row, if I'm not mistaken. They have to be feeling like this is their chance now. They've been so good in the build-up.
Yeah. I mean, the last time CSM was at the Final Four was in season 2017, 2018, I think. I have to say that since Bojana came during the winter break, they're playing so great in Champions League. I don't know if she brought the spirit or also her knowledge of handball, but something changed in CSM and they were playing so great. I really love watching them play, in the last few games. There are so many stories between Esbjerg and Bucuresti. I think it's going to be one of the best games of the quarterfinals, to be honest.
We did talk about this a few weeks ago, and the same question did pop up about, what exactly Bojana Popovic brings. And besides, of course, the incredible knowledge that she does have, but the energy, the desire, the willingness to fight, and probably inspiring the willingness to fight from the players as well has to be a big part of it. And knowing that you have someone like that who knows how to navigate this kind of event has to be massive. And maybe one of the other aspects of this is that Bojana Popovic also has her dual role. And I know Esbjerg is almost more a Norwegian team than a Danish team nowadays, but must have an awful lot of inside knowledge as well on the Danish side of things and Esbjerg.
Of course, and I think that she also talks a lot with Helle on that topic, who was also a coach in CSM, and she knows all the things surrounding the club, and just insight on the players. As you said, they're more Norwegian team, but still the Danish influence is there. So, and we know that Bojana also played for so many years in Denmark. She has this strong connection with Denmark. She speaks Danish. So, she for me, she is just a person with this aura, this energy. I don't know how to explain it, but when you're watching her on the bench, she's like, I have a feeling that she wants to enter the court and play as a coach, and also, when you
still has the sleeves up, still ready to go. Yeah.
And, playing against Esbjerg for the 4th time in 5-6 years in quarterfinals, it's just, there's so many things going on there. And I think that she really wants to beat them.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah, these records are almost always meant to be broken. The more it builds up, of course, it will have a lingering effect in terms of a team thinking, "Oh God, we're never going to beat them." Esbjerg, interestingly, have already broken one of those by finally getting a win over Gerd after, I think it was the 11th time of asking. They finally got a win over them in the game I talked about earlier, where they absolutely stormed them in the first half at home. So CSM will have that in mind, but maybe are looking at it in the more positive way with Bojana Popovic as head coach, like bringing in that freshness and looking at it in a way of, okay, it's their time to lose, like Esbjerg's time to lose finally this game. Esbjerg themselves, the way they have played the last few years, the team that they have are always going to be looking further. So my question to you in the end, which curse is going to finish, which is more likely to be broken? CSM winning a quarterfinal against Esbjerg, or Esbjerg getting to the final of the Champions League at last?
Oh, it's so hard. It's so hard. But I would like to see CSM back at the Final Four, because it's going to be almost 10 years without Romanian team. Of course, we have now 2 teams competing for the spot in Budapest. But I would like to see a bit change in Budapest, because we saw Esbjerg in the last 4 years in a row. there. But of course, I don't know. I cannot say. But I would like to see CSM.
So based on what, in a mixture of predictions and what you would like to see, I'm gathering then it's CSM, it's Brest,
tough.
Metz, and Gerd in the final four for you.
Let's go with that. Yeah.
Okay.
But we have 2 French teams, 2 Hungarian teams, and 2 Romanian teams.
And 2 Danish teams.
And 2 Danish teams. So let's give one country, each country a place, something like that, maybe.
Sadly, that's not possible.
Yeah, I know.
No, it is possible.
It is possible. It is possible,
but it would require.
Gloria versus Brest, Esbjerg versus CSM, Ferencváros versus Metz, and Odense versus Gyer. Oh,
okay. Exactly. That would require a lot of surprises.
But you never know with handball.
Maybe the Danijela Vekic alternative final four with the 4 teams that don't qualify playing each other. But that's a nice part, and we've similar to the men's side. It although there are some slight favourites in these 4 quarterfinals, it is very nicely poised, and it's good to see that strength and depth where you could imagine in some world each of the 8 teams qualifying for Budapest.
I hate to predict anything, especially in the quarterfinals, because it's a special feeling playing for a spot at the final 4. And as I always say in this podcast, I'm so bad in predicting. So if I say some team is going to be there, probably they're not going to be there. So I'm not going to say anything to anyone anymore.
All right, we'll wrap it up there. Thanks a lot for your time, Danijela. Great
thank you.
Insight on both knockout sides in the men's and women's. Enjoy your maybe not so Easter weekend.
Yeah.
And I'll catch you again soon.
Thank you, Chris, for having me, and enjoy your weekend too.
Well, thank you to Danijela, and thank you all for listening. I hope you enjoyed that little look back at the playoffs in both the men's and women's Champions League. More action to come next week in the second leg of those men's playoffs. And as we were sharing there, plenty to look forward to. We have 2 bonus podcasts coming up on Patreon next week on our morning club episodes. We'll do European League review on Wednesday morning, and then concluding the playoff round in the Men's Champions League on Friday morning. Until then, everyone, thanks for joining. Enjoy your Easter weekend, and goodbye.